Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Robin. Welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Thursday night, January 29th, 2026. As we bring you this show, this weekend is SoxFest, hosted at the Remova Theater off of 35th and Halsted in Chicago's Bridgeport neighborhood. It's a great opportunity for fans to meet some of the White Sox players before they make their way down to Camelback Ranch in Arizona for spring training. Before SoxFest, the Chicago White Sox held an event at the Louis L. Valentine Boys and Girls Club in Bridgeport. One of the better aspects of the White Sox organization has been their community efforts, led by Vice President Christine O'Reilly, as the White Sox and Boys and Girls Club had a ribbon-cutting ceremony, as the White Sox donated over $125,000 to their new art room. While there, both White Sox General Manager Chris Getz and manager Will Venable spoke with the media. You'll hear them shortly about how they feel about the roster heading into spring training. Plus, top 100 prospect lists are out. Which prospect sites are the highest for the White Sox? Also, who is the lowest? And are there any surprises with the rankings? In the end, we'll talk about the Vegas Sportsbook odds as the MLB team win total over-unders have been posted. Where the White Sox stand today, are we taking the over or under in what Vegas is projecting the amount of wins for the White Sox in 2026? Lots to discuss, but first, some personal news. One of our diehard podcast listeners is my father-in-law, Roy. Some of you have met Roy at many of our events, whether it's been the road trips to Milwaukee, Kansas City, San Diego, Minneapolis, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. You met him at our live podcast, and I always get a kick when some of you share how wonderful an experience it was talking to Roy. Unfortunately, Roy got some tough medical news this week as he's been diagnosed with cancer. He's a tough guy, and he has been taking care of himself for a while now. Doctors are optimistic they caught it in time and that it's treatable, but I know how much of a community we are at Sox Machine. Many of you visit the site daily just to chat online with fellow commentators, and all of us have been impacted by cancer either directly or indirectly. So any well wishes and prayers to Roy would be greatly appreciated. I know he's listening, and I just want to say how much I appreciate you, Roy. You mean a lot to us, and I can't wait to see you yapping it up with everyone at a tailgate. Love you, Dad. With SoxFest festivities all weekend, on Thursday night was the best opportunity to get Chris Getz and Will Venable to talk about the ball club before they head to spring training. Here's Getz sharing how he feels about the team.
We feel pretty good about the team. You review kind of the off season, finishing off the season like we did last year, really building a lot of momentum. We felt like we've been able to take that momentum into the off season. And what's attached to that, it's being able to bring in some free agents, executing on some transactions, getting the number one pick, just to kind of add to what we're doing. Will's done a tremendous job building a support staff that's really going to serve our players. You look at some of the acquisitions from this off season, whether it be Anthony Kay, Newcomb, Acuna, Murakami, of course, but some of those free agent ads, they're guys that not only we feel like it's going to bring present value, but there's some real upside there too. We know that they're not all going to perform to perhaps the highest of outcomes, but we feel like they were really sound decisions that's going to help our club in the short term and potentially long term as well.
We are expecting to hear from Sir Anthony Dominguez soon as the White Sox officially announced that signing. Even with Dominguez now part of the ball club, Getz is expecting the bullpen to have the most open competitions in making the opening day roster this spring.
I would say the bullpen. We obviously Sir Anthony Dominguez coming in is a stabilizing arm, allows us to, balance the bullpen with Leisure and Grant Taylor and Mike Vassell and having, some options to help finish games. That was important for us. You look at the one-run losses, those games that we just weren't able to get to the finish line. We've got more opportunities, more options. I sit down with Will and the staff before games and after games and talk about availability. Who do we have the following day? Well, we only have this guy, so how do we get to that guy? Now we've got more options, and that's going to allow us to finish more games than we have in the past. So, but there is still a fair amount of open competition in that bullpen. But with that being said, with the depth that we brought in on the position player front as well, with the versatility, there's going to be competition in a lot of different places.
As we mentioned in our previous podcast, the White Sox one-run record in 2025 was 15-36. Getz is hoping that by pairing Dominguez with Jordan Leisure and Grant Taylor and Mike Vassell, they can improve their ability to hold on to one-run leads in 2026. But again, the White Sox are not expecting to contend for the AL Central crown this upcoming season, so why sign a high-leverage reliever like Dominguez?
There's definitely something valuable about finishing games and getting more wins for the sake of the development of this group as a whole. On top of that, it allows us to really balance, the usage for Grant Taylor and Leisure and Vassell and these other guys that are still getting acclimated to whether it be the bullpen or the major league level. So to have someone that can help stabilize that's done it before and is going to be able to help finish these games is not only valuable to allow those guys to be in perhaps more optimal roles, but I think most importantly, we're talking about a bullpen now that's going to allow us to get to the finish line to stack up more wins.
I don't think any position is going to have a harder look by analysts and reporters and fans this upcoming spring training than in center field. After trading Luis Robert Jr., Getz shared who the early contenders are vying for playing time to try and lock down that position.
Currently, Acuna's played center field in winter ball. He's obviously a very versatile defender, been very strong at shortstop and second base. He's got instincts that's going to make him a strong defender anywhere on the field. On top of that, we've got Derek Hill, who's historically been a very good defender. We've got Everson Pereira that we acquired from the Tampa Bay Rays, who is a high-level prospect, hasn't gotten a whole lot of a runway at the major league level, who's a strong defender at center fielder at the wing. So those three guys right there feel like we can cover plenty of ground and have some offensive potential. Brooks Baldwin's played at center field. He's getting more and more comfortable in the outfield. And then, of course, we'll continue to look at availability with free agents on the market and, of course, trades as well.
Speaking of looking, Getz made sure to point out that he's not done shopping yet.
I believe that there's going to be more ads. To what level, unsure. We're continuing to have conversations with agents for just to bring in some more free agents. On top of that, we're having conversations with other clubs with potentially trades as well. So, after we did the Louis move and, I said that we were going to be active, we've remained active. We have, obviously, with Sir Anthony Dominguez coming in, but, we've had a lot of, I would say, fruitful conversations with other clubs as well.
Getz won't put a win total out there or thoughts about competing for a division title this season, but he is confident that White Sox fans will see more wins this upcoming season.
I think we're going to make a meaningful step forward. You look at what we were able to accomplish in the second half with the additions that we have, Will and the staff and the process they have in place. We talk about his pathway of victory on a nightly basis, the environment that he creates, within that clubhouse, allows the players to go out there and just, what do they have to do that day to win ball games? So we've added to the group of talent that is currently there. the process is only getting stronger. So we do feel like we're going to take another step forward.
Will Venable is entering his second season with the White Sox as manager, and he's excited for this spring training as he's noticed a growing cohesion among the players.
Last year I came in, and it was my impression in spring training how connected they were, that when I was talking to them in the offseason, they just seemed like they were communicating well, that whatever they had been through before I had got here had brought them together. Witnessed that on a daily basis throughout the season. And throughout this offseason, it's just continued to grow. We had guys working out together in the offseason. Some of them were living together in the offseason. And so just getting the group together and seeing that growth again and really kind of leaning into that is something I'm really looking forward to.
Venable does believe that this roster is building momentum in being a consistent winner, but there's much work to be done.
It's significant, and it's the way that we feel about it, the way that people talk about it, it's real, and it's something that I think we're excited about. I think at the same time, we're coming into spring training with really a ground-up approach, knowing that we're starting from zero. We're hitting the reset button and starting to build from the ground up. That's something that I think you have to do every season, but especially for us as a group that did make so much progress last year, had a good offseason of good skill development, good communication, good acquisitions. It just doesn't happen because we have momentum. You have to go to work and really start from the ground up.
And it's just not the players that have to get better. Even Venable admits that he sees an opportunity for himself to be a better manager in 2026.
Really about, the weight my boys carries, I think, I was in tune with that as a leader of a group, but, being in the manager seat's different, and, talked about, my role in setting the tone on a daily basis and what that means in different parts of the year, different series or whatever it might be. And so, just after a year of understanding what that means to our group and what it means for me, hopefully I can do a better job of that and make some adjustments.
Venable does know what it's like to be part of a ball club that went from 60 wins to 90 and eventually a World Series title. That's what happened with him when he joined the Texas Rangers. And while it would help a great deal if the White Sox spent the level of cash the Rangers did for their rebuild, what Venable is attempting to implement with this young White Sox roster is staying committed to the core principles of player development.
I think in general, just the things that club was able to do, again, the commitment to very core principles, core fundamentals that these guys made daily habits, is something that I noticed, something that we work every day to try and put in place here, that our guys continue to understand and implement on a daily basis. So, I think, just commitment to these little seemingly little things that we call winning things, our guys are doing a good job of taking ownership of.
Even though Getz won't set a win total goal, some of the White Sox players are feeling confident about this upcoming season, eyeing a shot of making the postseason. Venable is not afraid to embrace that goal, but he needs his players to understand what it takes to achieve it.
I think you have to embrace it. I mean, the fact that our club believes in themselves, I think that every single manager in the big leagues is looking for their club to get to that level, and certainly makes my job easier if they already believe, and that's great, and those goals are great, but my job is to say, like, this is what we have to do to get there, right? And that is kind of part of the ground up approach, saying, hey, we spent an off season with our imaginations and kind of growing and believing in what this thing could be. If you want to get there at all, we're going to have to commit to these things and make them part of our daily habits.
Recording with Jim and James in 3, 2, 1. Joining me now on the Sox Machine podcast is Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gentlemen. Jim, welcome back. We missed you in the last episode because of the awful winter weather knocking out power at your home.
Yeah, thanks. We were without power for about 31 hours, and turns out that we were fortunate because I think the highest I saw the number for the power service was 222,000 customers without power. That number is still at 90, and it's been nearly a week. So, yeah, at first I was annoyed that I was without power and that we had to try to figure out exactly whose couches we were crashing on, over the course of weeks. So we didn't put any one person out. And then, it turns out that we were extremely lucky. Like even most of our food was fine because the inside of our house was so cold. Got down to like 30 something that basically everything was refrigerated. So we didn't even lose the fridge, which was pretty nice. So all things considered, we're fortunate, but yeah, the original forecast for the storm said like 17 inches of snow, and I would gladly take 17 inches of snow over 3/4 of an inch of ice because that does a lot more damage.
Wow. Well, we hope that everyone listening to this, because the weather's still not great in Chicago, but wherever you are, hopefully you and your family and friends are doing okay as we go through a pretty treacherous winter storm all over the country this upcoming weekend. While James and I are chilling at SoxFest, for our friends down in Florida, you're going to be below 30 as far as the low. So take care of yourselves down there. For the White Sox, the top 100 prospect lists were released, and everyone is pretty much not get a copy and paste as far as the timeline, but everyone's releasing their top 100 lists in the same week, it seems like. MLB.com, Baseball America, ESPN, and Keith Law over at The Athletic. They all released their top 100 prospects for the preseason 2026 rankings. And if you haven't gotten a chance to check them out, I know there's been a lot of conversation, the Sox Machine comments, over with our friends at MLB.com, Jim Callis and Jonathan Mayo, Brandon Montgomery, Noah Schultz, Caleb Boniver, Hagen Smith, Billy Carlson in the top 100. All 5 of these guys are the top 75. Baseball America had 6 White Sox prospects in their top 100, with Tanner McDougal making the cutoff at number 100. Keith Law had 5 White Sox prospects in his top 100. And then there's Kylie McDaniel over at ESPN. And he only has 3 White Sox prospects in the top 100. He only has 1 in the top 50, being Caleb Bonimer, Noah Schultz at number 96, and Billy Carlson at 100. To give Kylie some credit, when he zooms out to the top 200 list, he has 5 additional White Sox prospects, but he has Christian Opper as the 4th best White Sox prospect, higher than Hagen Smith. So James Fegan, you're not alone on that bandwagon. You do have some support.
You're never alone when you're aligned with the truth.
I'll start with you, James. When you look at the other top 100 lists, I know you kind of help Fangraphs with their top 100 as well. And we had that podcast episode with Eric Logenhagen joining, with you guys breaking down your thought process on determining the top White Sox prospects. But anything that catches your eye as far as any surprises looking at the other top 100 prospect list for the White Sox?
I guess one thing to note, prefacing, an invitation to talk shit about my colleagues in this industry, which I am declining, is that when we rated, we gave 6 top 100 grades. We haven't made like the top 100 list, but if you're a 50 FB, you're in that tier for Fangraphs. 2 White Sox players, and Billy Carlson was like our 7th. He was like at 45 plus, basically on the idea like, haven't really seen him hit in a real game, and hit tool questions are the thing for him. Nobody was like above 50. Like everyone was kind of like just at that general tier of like, all right, they're in, but you can make any case for where. So the idea generally that they're sliding all over the place pretty much for like personal evaluator preference, like that scans. It's not like there's some guy that like I think is like a 60 and like somebody doesn't have him listed or anything like that. They're all kind of in a bucket where they have some pretty clear flaws or recent issues, or, in the case of Noah Schultz, kind of moving around between like top prospect or not even on some people's list. Just we're bad all last year, pretty much. Still has the same ingredients for why he should be really good. But as far as his results, everything got worse, threw fewer strikes and got hammered in AAA. So I feel like there's a lot of room for it going around. Like, I think for me, I and some other lists had Bonimer up top. Like, he's just like very stable in everything he does. Like, he should stay on the infield. He should make enough contact. He should have a touch above average power. He shouldn't be a 0 defensively or like on the bases. There's just not really like a glaring hole. So that's why he kind of slipped up for me. And that's why I think he's pretty consistent in being around in all these places. Whereas somebody who's like Brady Montgomery, like, there's easily where like, look at him. There's easily a world where he's the best player of all these guys because he's just like so physically talented and has such a great reputation for working hard. But you could also just look at the performance or look at like, how much he swung and missed last year and be like, that's usually a warning sign, and I'm out on this, or I'm going to be lower on this. And I think they all had that to some degree with like Hagen Smith not throwing strikes last season, Tanner McDougal not really throwing strikes until last year, and still kind of having a lot of reliever traits. And Christian Opper, it's probably a little early to be on him for him being on the mat. He wasn't really probably even a top 10 org prospect until this past season. And Billy Carlson is, as I said, never played a professional game. So I think they are kind of set up to have a lot of variance, even if I think things I'm probably on the side of thinking that, at least for in terms of top 100 prospects, they're strong. I think their depth drops off pretty quickly. That's more the critique of the system that I would have as one that shows up in these top prospect lists, where I think, if anything, they'll probably look a bit better than they are, because you can get as high as 6 or 7 guys who can appear in these lists.
How about you, Jim? When you scan through the list, anything that catches your attention or caught by surprise?
Well, I do like variance when it comes to one-person lists, like Kylie's a one-man show more or less. Keith Law's a one-man show, and I like that they don't adhere to, I guess, consensus or whatever, like the majority opinion or plurality opinion might be, because there is a range of outcomes to consider. Like I always think about, when it came to Keith Law being very bearish on Nick Madrigal, and then that pretty much panned out. Like he was not an impact player. He took a lot of crap for that opinion as it was happening. And then it turned out that it actually worked out pretty well. And I think with Madrigal, that was always the case, where he could be somebody who hits 330 every year and provides a lot of defensive value, or he just doesn't make enough impact contact to be a difference maker. And then it turns out the other tools weren't that good either. So I like when you see a whole bunch of variants. You see Braden Montgomery being 140 spot difference between his highest ranking and his lowest ranking, because that could very well be the case in terms of just the range of outcomes if he simulated his career 100 times. And as somebody who, my rankings are more or less based on some gut reads, I guess, because I don't have the sophisticated scouting language other people do, or rich network of contacts. I see a guy, I have some hunches, and I kind of let it fly. There, but for the grace of God, go I when it comes to crapping on a 170 ranking for Montgomery. To me, it was more what surprised me was William Bergoya being that close to Braden Montgomery in a rankings, both reflecting skepticism about Montgomery, but also enthusiasm about Bergoya, which I thought was, equally notable. So that's kind of where I'm at with those rankings. I think maybe the biggest takeaway I have overall is seeing Billy Carlson come into view as somebody who is exciting people on his glove alone. Basically, that provides such a high floor, and we knew that, but seeing it quantified in this regard is stands out, and almost to where if he becomes an impact hitter, if he hits league average or even slightly below league average, he's a guy. And if he somehow manages to capitalize on the physical tools he has beneath his swing, and turns out to be an above average hitter, all of a sudden you're talking about maybe not the best shortstop in baseball, maybe not Bobby Witt Jr. grade, but close, a tier below. That's pretty cool to think about, project as we see him go into his first professional games and see him, be able to contextualize his hitting skill against, other hitters in similar age or maybe even older. So I think, as we, the other question marks with Smith and Schultz and, Montgomery, even Caleb Bonham to a lesser degree, they're known. But I think, Carlson being somebody who's new and doesn't have that kind of track record to where you can really, hash out the positives and negatives. I think right now the early reads are pretty positive.
James did ask Chris Getz, the White Sox general manager at the Boys and Girls Club during the, opener of the SoxFest weekend for the Chicago White Sox, about Caleb Bonham, and if he was close to getting a spring training invite. And James Getz thought about it. I mean, he admitted he thought about having Bonhomer join the Major League Club to at least start spring training to get that experience, but they felt like it's too soon. And my takeaway is like, and we heard about this in Orlando in the press room at the winter meetings. Everyone's high on Caleb Bonhomer. Jim, is there any concern about overhyping Caleb Bonhomer? Because obviously he had a great season last year and it was very impressive. And I am hoping that he is a top 50 prospect, because if he is and he continues that progress in 2026, it's another infielder that White Sox fans can dream on, especially if Chase Mydroth is still putting together, an 85 weighted runs created plus. Like, fine utility-wise and a great guy to have on the bench, but the White Sox need a league average hitter at second base. Here comes this kid, Caleb Bonhomer, that you can dream on, and I'm hoping for that. But my big takeaway here is, everyone's high on Caleb Bonhomer. And if you're not on the Caleb Bonhomer train, did I miss it? I guess is the question.
Choo-choo. No, it's... I think with the way the White Sox are presently constructed and also having no timeline for when they're going to be good again or when they plan to contend, that I don't think there's danger in it right now, because it's not like the White Sox are clearing out room. I think like Colson Montgomery coming up, I think the idea was like, this guy really needs to be a shortstop, because if he doesn't become a shortstop and if he's not an above average hitter, if he's not like an impact hitter, then what else is there to kind of hang a core around? And then we saw as Montgomery's stock wobbled, and we saw, I think, by the time Montgomery came on the scene, like everything else had crumbled to the point where like it was more or less immaterial and just kind of another sad thing until he turned it around. But I think, you're seeing Getz prioritize up the middle athletes. You're seeing them like stack shortstops. And even if they draft like Rock Chalowski, if he happens to be the 1-1 guy, like, he might not even play shortstop because Billy Carlson's that good if Carlson makes it. Like, they're stacking guys, and they're more or less saying like, well, if our best defender who can also hit at the level forces somebody out, great. We want that to happen. So I think with the way they're stacking guys, not so much a concern that the White Sox are putting too many eggs in one basket. I think, maybe is there some danger of White Sox fans being slightly crestfallen by Bonhomer maybe peaking early and not necessarily elevating his game against AA and AAA pitching, and he's more or less kind of a bat, but not a great one. And somebody can be on the infielder, but not a great defensive infielder, and he's just more or less a role player than a star. Then you can overhype him for that. But the White Sox aren't really putting themselves out in terms of needing Bonhomer to succeed in the position he's succeeding on the trajectory he's succeeding at, and being screwed if he falls short.
No, that's a really good point, because that's a different tone of a conversation, as you pointed out, Jim, from last year when we were talking about Colson Montgomery. Like, if Colson Montgomery doesn't pan out, what do you got? Now, that rhetoric has completely changed with the White Sox drafting Billy Carlson, and I'm excited to see what Billy Carlson does offensively. James, every time he talks about it, I don't think there's anything that puts a bigger smile on Chris Getz's face than him bragging that he's got the number 1 overall pick. That man is really happy he's got the number 1 overall pick, James.
Secondary leads, that kind of brings
that's true. Yeah.
Pre-pitch setup, that stirs him deep down.
But that number 1 pick, he gets super happy.
Keeps him warm during a Chicago winter.
Every time. And I know this is going to be a future conversation of like, well, if you already got Billy Carlson and Billy Carlson's hitting well to start 2026, why draft Rock Chalowski? And I think we can all agree that's a good problem to have. After so many years complaining about the lack of depth on the position player front, to have some, that's a good problem to have. Yeah, it'd be great if one of them could play outfield, but
it's not a problem.
A good problem.
Even like you're just trying to acquire talent in the draft. You're not filling out a depth chart, especially at that like tier and spending level. It's not a problem.
With Christian Opper, I guess like it'd be fun. It's always a fun exercise to see in the preseason where guys stack up, and then when the mid-season updates happen. I know Christian
all the dreams have been broken.
Yeah. I know Christian Hopper, James, I think he's got a real good chance to break through and impress a lot of people this upcoming season. Hopper, Tanner McDougal, are these the two guys that we haven't talked a lot about when it comes to White Sox prospects that could be their next top 100 guys?
I mean, yes, because I evaluated them and gave them top 100 grades. So, yes, I believe so. Both of them are mostly just like, look at the stuff. They both have triple digits. They both have kind of over 40% miss rate, like secondary weapons. Hopper was like the big question. Well, there's multiple questions of them, but like a question for me, like he's a natural pronator. His changeup has always performed. It looks a little bit like more streamlined now. The question, like going into like late last year, was he ever going to figure out what his breaking ball was? Because it doesn't really come natural to him. It seems like he figured it out with the sweeper that he throws out of that low slot, and now everything's like very seemingly optimized for him to be this kind of low slot guy, and works really east-west off of that and just throws really hard. And, you know, McDougal, like, I mean, more issue is just like, is he maxed out? He's already like 6'5", 240. He looks like the adventures of young Lance Lynn, like already. Like, is there going to be another real jump, or is that what's happened to him? But I think like the risk is more like he's an awesome closer. And because like the strike throwing hasn't necessarily been there, and he's stopped throwing his changeup to a degree. I covered him for so long that I know he grew up only being able to throw a changeup because that's all his dad would let him throw in high school because they didn't want to mess up his arm throwing breaking balls. So I'm pretty confident saying, like, even though like you look at him like this is this insane spin guy, he's not gonna be able to throw a changeup. He's pretty comfortable doing it just because he has so many reps from growing up. I think he could use it more. He obviously didn't need it because like his curveball's pretty nuts. But I've always just been a big believer in him. Like, obviously the injury history and like his strike throwing history is just not like what makes him like a number one clear, like this guy's going to stick in the rotation type of arm. And he doesn't have that track record and has put together some bad tape, so to speak, with his first couple of years in pro ball. But he's driven with rage. He's someone who is very just like hard on himself, and you can see that go the wrong way. But I think it's largely driven him the right way, especially in the last year with how seriously he's taken his career. So this is somebody I thought was like a great pick in the draft, and to see him kind of bloom, like, yeah, I think he's definitely a top 100 guy. That said, like an easier pick to click is just Billy Carlson. He's he's someone that people, if he shows any offense at all, are ready to like fly up the list because he's probably the best defensive shortstop in the minors. So if looks like he's going to be an average bat, then it's more easy to see a world where Billy Carlson's the number one prospect than like Caleb Bonimer even now, just because like
sure,
Bonimer is never going to like be the projection of this guy's going to stick up the middle, and he might grow more power, but he's also looks pretty filled out, even as though he's only 20. He's not someone who you say like, oh, he's super projectable. It's more like, well, it's already like above average major league max exit velocity, so he already has above average power. You don't really have to worry about it. Carlson can obviously like has no hitting track record in the pros to really speak of, but given where he has in the defensive spectrum, given that he is projectable, he's someone who probably could more easily shoot all the way up to the top with like good offensive performance, whereas like some of these guys are more like you're going to see them wiggle a little bit but not as much, just because like the defensive ceiling is so high.
Well, let us know in the comment section on the podcast post on SoxMachine.com what you guys think of the top 100 list. I know there's been a lot of conversation. Future podcast episodes are going to have many of these writers join the show. Jim always has his annual conversation with Keith Law to get Keith's thoughts about the White Sox prospects. We'll have Jim Callis talking about the White Sox prospects in the top 100. And I'm always invited into the roundtable conversation that ESPN hosts for Kylie McDaniel. Don't worry, White Sox fans. I will just simply address Kylie. Kylie, Braden Montgomery ranked 189. Why? And just let him go. Kylie does such a great job mixing together both scouting reports and data. And I know we've talked about the in-zone contact rate for Braden Montgomery. Eric Logenhagen, if you listen to the Fangraphs top White Sox prospect list, he source that as a concern. I'm wondering if that's why Kylie has Braden Montgomery so low, but we'll get more information about these top 100 lists. But all 4 of them are out there for you to view and enjoy, and those will be future podcast episodes as we interview those analysts and writers. And the final item on this podcast episode, I know many of you are not big into sports betting, but it's always fun when Vegas comes out with their team win totals, the over-unders, and they have released them for this upcoming season, along with division odds and World Series odds, and even player props as well, as the players who have the best chance of hitting the most home runs in Major League Baseball. And for the Chicago White Sox, it's good to see, Jim, a team win total from Vegas that doesn't start with the 5. It's set. DraftKings has it at 65.5 wins with minus 105 odds. So if you put $10 on the White Sox to hit the over, you're going to win $19.52. Woo! Chicken nugget money. Go to McDonald's. Get some nugs. But with 65.5 wins, Jim, the White Sox could still make some moves. We heard Chris Getz say that. This team may not be complete yet, even at the beginning of spring training or even during spring training. But how are you feeling about that win total? Would you take the over or under 65.5 wins?
As presently constructed, I would take under, just because of I don't see them going much higher than, like, say 68. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing 70 wins right now. I could see like a case where things blow up on them and they win 50 something games again. So I think just if you're trying to like do a law of averages in your head, like I would think like 62, 63 is kind of the number I'm hitting right now.
So repeat it.
Kind of. But I mean, like
slightly.
They just don't have an outfield. They're lacking starters. Like they're kind of one injury or one, I guess, bad sophomore slump from kind of being in the same position they were last year. I think last year's record looked a little bit worse than it might have been just because of all of the 8th and 9th inning failures that they endured. And you're hoping that like just between Grant Taylor and Sir Anthony Dominguez and Jordan Leisure that they have like better options for the beginning of the year and that they don't blow so many leads. But yeah, right now I'd say I feel under that number. However, like, let's see where they end up, what they'd end up doing if Chris Getz ends up making these moves he's talking about that, he feels that they can still add. They might be 1 or 2 signings away from feeling like, they can win 70 games. And then, and I'm sure the number will go up as well. But yeah, I just feel like the work isn't done yet to feel like they've really made a leap from last year. And I think like feeling like, 66, 67 to 70 wins feels like another step up that they haven't made yet.
How are you feeling, James? Would you take the over or under 65.5 wins for the White Sox right now?
I'm actually beginning really into sports gambling, Josh, because I'm reading Everybody Loses by Danny Lunt about the rise of sports gambling in America. It's really...
How is the book?
That's on my list.
Driving home about how up until very recently, all sports commissioners felt that gambling was an existential evil that would only corrupt the priorities by which brings people to the sport and eventually warp their once love of baseball for itself into something destructive for their family. I'm taking the over on the White Sox. I like a bit of the hair of the dog that bit me, which the White Sox do nearly every time. I predict the over on them and did last year when I predicted the under on them. So let's book on the PFAG was like 71 wins last year. They've done things to address the level of like 1-run loss, bad luck that they had last year, and they also traded away Robert, which might hinder their opportunity to even play 1-run games at some point over the course of the season. But at least there's a focus on defense throughout the lineup, more so than there can be for offense at this stage. And maybe that'll help aid their 1-run performance as well, to have fewer vulnerabilities in key situations where they have to prevent runs. So, and it sounds like they're going to do something. I still think there's going to be at least attempts to add to the outfield and starting pitching, before March. I know a lot of signings still trickled in that first week of spring training last year. And, the way things have kind of shaped up this year, you don't think it would be much different. So maybe someone who plays 100+ games like Michael Taylor will get signed on the second or third day of spring training again. We'll see. That's why he sent me out there to meet the Michael Taylors of the world in person. I'll take the over.
I'm gonna go with
great book too from the indication.
Yes, I'm joining James. I'm also taking the over. They have to win more than 70 games. I think for the sanity of this fan base, they have to win more than 70 games this upcoming season to really feel like enough meaningful progress is being made that, yes, we're going to see the lockout. The league will stop while they negotiate internally between the owners of how they deal with this revenue disparity that we've talked about for a while, before even presenting some type of salary cap solution to the Players Association. I don't know if any games will be missed, but at least for White Sox fans, Jim, everyone involved, even those that cover this team, has to feel like it's building up to something. And Chris Getz is now, he's not putting a number on it, Jim, but even like today, speaking to us at the media session, he is confident that we're going to see a better White Sox team in 2026 than what we saw at the end of 2025. And he's starting to sell a little bit more optimism, doing a better job of that than when we talked to him the first night of the winter meetings in Orlando back in December.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, given the quality of ball that they played in the second half, given that this season, you would hope that they're not in a position where they have to sell off anybody who looks good, because it's hard to think of, maybe Anthony Kay, maybe Dominguez, maybe like these 2-year contracts they signed Murakami. They're like, let's flip them for something. And they kind of go back to square one. But it seems like if there is even like, if they're playing 400 ball or something like that, in the first half, I don't think they're going to punt on that, just because I don't know what the value of punting is when they can maybe build on, especially like depending on whether Hagen Smith or Noah Schultz or Tanner McDougal, if they look like they can start filling in some upside pitchers, from within versus having to hunt for them, then the complexion may look different. I guess I'm just guarding against the case where like Anthony Kay is no Eric Fetty, and then, they just, the pitching kind of collapses in with, Burke and Cannon still running the same problems they had last year. So that's why I think I'm more on guard. But if they just, I think, added an outfielder to where it's not so heavily reliant on Brooks Baldwin and Jared Kelenic apparently, and then you get a little bit of less reliance on Anthony Kay being somebody who can hold down a spot, then I think I'm feeling better that this is just back to ordinary levels of below average versus being 2 standard deviations worse and, racking up yet another 100 loss season.
If you do bet, please bet responsibly. Do not want to be part of an upcoming audiobook that James Fegan is listening to as he makes his way from his home to White Sox games at Ray Field this upcoming season. Please do not DM White Sox players and threaten them because they did not have a good performance. Please do not be like that.
I mean, one section is about how they recognize when people are actually skilled at gaming and then shut down their accounts. So maybe you will be part of the section that I'm reading about for good reasons.
For very good reasons.
That are made bad by conscious actions of a company.
That is my dream, that one day I go into a casino and I win a jackpot and I get politely escorted out of the casino because I won a bunch of money. That's one of my dreams.
Your dream is to get roughed up by the casino management in the alley behind?
Yeah, why not? At least I had that moment, that thrill.
It's like the world's worst choose your own adventure book.
Sure is.
What a compliment that they thought I was counting cards. These jagged fingers I have are a testament to my ability.
Well, that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. We have so much content coming your guys' way on SoxMachine.com and all of our social media channels, and also our YouTube channel, as James and I will be at SoxFest at the Remova Theater. Friday will be very heavy for us as we get a chance to have one-on-ones with many of the White Sox players and coaches. That will be at the Remova Theater. So you can check out, again, all of our work upcoming on SoxMachine.com, on our YouTube channel. We just hit 2,000 subscribers. So to all of our new subscribers, thank you guys. Hoping that you are enjoying the content, doing more of the YouTube shorts to educate and also provide another avenue of news as well, to introduce Sox Machine to a whole new group of White Sox fans that may not be on White Sox Twitter. Hopefully we do find you guys, and if you are joining Sox Machine, thank you. Again, you can follow us on all the social media platforms. We're going to be at Sox Machine. James is going to be at JR Fegan. I am at SoxMachine_Josh. And of course, we are on Instagram at Sox Machine, and we are also on Blue Sky at SoxMachine.com. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox and Major League Baseball, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber. And what a better time than now to sign up for an annual subscription so you get the entire season with SoxFest and spring training coming at SoxMachine.com/products. Monthly plans start at $5, but if you do sign up for an annual subscription, you do get a discount. We also have a couple spots open in our Veterans Committee, our VC, which you can join our group chat and have direct access to both Jim and James, as James gives you all of the gossip, whispers, the gossipers, all the way down in spring training of what he is hearing at Camelback Ranch. So if you're interested in joining Sox Machine, go to SoxMachine.com/products and sign up today. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're for all the things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.